Your code will not get you promoted. I know how that sounds. We're all raised on the same advice. Be so good they can't ignore you. Write clean code, ship clean code, and the career takes care of itself. And for the first few years of my career, I believed it. I believed the work would speak for itself. So I did what most engineers do. I put my head down, writing the cleanest code I could write, picking up the hard tickets, working the late nights, and then I watched someone with half my experience move up in rank while I stayed exactly where I was. Then later I find out his secret weapon was embarrassingly small. A three-line note he kept every Friday about his work and he shared them with the team consistently. I wish someone had pulled me aside and told me what I'm about to tell you. The work doesn't speak. You do. Most of us blame this on office politics. I did too, but it usually isn't politics. It's that we engineers are only doing half the job. And the other half, the half nobody teaches, is communication. Because communication isn't just the soft skill part of engineering, it's the multiplier on everything technical you do. And it has two halves nobody explains: how you talk about the work and how you handle the people. In the next few minutes, I'll give you the exact template I use for the first half, playbook you can copy today. And then the second half, the part about the people that nobody wants you about and that quietly gets career stuck. I've used this playbook with over 50 engineers across 3 companies, so let's get right in. I'll organize the whole talking about the work half around 3 words: proactive, precise, professional, the 3P framework. Proactive. Most engineers only speak up when something is already on fire, but the senior ones speak up before it does. Say your API responses are creeping up or a non-critical error keeps showing in Sentry. As a senior engineer, you're watching your monitoring tools, obviously. Scout, Prometheus, Datadog, whatever your team uses. So you have probably already spotted it. Most junior ones would quietly fix it, or some that don't monitor their system or even understand the tools that they're using will just wait for the system to break. But the senior move is to flag it early, not because you can't handle it, but because it shows you saw it coming and that you are thinking about the bigger picture. So instead of staying quiet, you should drop a note like this. Look at everything that little message is doing. In about 30 seconds, it names the issue, shows you are already on it, sets expectation, gives a timeline, and pulls in the right people. 30 seconds. And you just went from the engineer who fixes things to the engineer who sees them coming and can maintain a system over a longer period of time. Same with a dependency issue. Let's say node 16 is going end of life in 2 months with 3 services affected. You name drop the end of life, the impact, you show a live document with the upgrade plan, and a call out to the team that needs to do something about it. Something like, let's discuss this in sprint planning. And afterwards, you can also ask if anyone wants to peer on solving the first service with you. And all I'm saying here is that being proactive isn't only about raising your hand. It's also about pulling people in to do whatever needs to be done precisely. Now, being precise. For me, this is the sweet spot between saying too little and too much. Let's take a code review for example. There are 3 ways it could be done. It could be too vague, saying something like this could be better, or it could be too harsh, saying things like this is inefficient, needs a full rewrite. Those two are somewhat useless and one is just outrightly rude. But the third approach, the right one here, is to be precise with your communication. Here's what being precise sounds like. You'd say something like, there are 2 optimization opportunities here. The inner loop is O of n squared, and I think we can flatten it. And I can see we are recomputing user preferences on every request. We could maybe cache them. Happy to peer. I call that ask feedback, actionable, specific, and kind. It means you are giving people the important details and the context they need to make a decision on what to do without being rude or overly verbose. The same in a crisis situation. Saying the system is down is useless, but saying something specific like the payment API is returning 500 for European customers only. This started 10 minutes ago and the log shows DB connection timeouts. You see, even though it's a short note, it's much more useful and gives people something to act on without having to read a novel from you. Always keep it short, precise, and professional. Speaking of the final P, being professional, this is not about being boring or being a rigid person, but it's also not about agreeing with everyone's ideas. It means you take apart the idea without taking apart the person, while staying on the topic at hand, without being too uptight, inflexible, or obstinate even. For example, just saying, go back and re-implement this code is inefficient, doesn't show respect, which is part of being professional. When you are being professional, you give feedback like this loop is O of n squared. And I think that's quite high in complexity for our use case here. Not that it is wrong, but I think we could improve it with a hash map. What do you think? We could pair on it if you like. You see, these two approaches convey the same point but with different impact. The goal was never to prove you are right, it's to show you are both after the same thing, that good software is shipped. This brings me to the actual playbook I use in different scenarios, and you can copy any of it. Let's talk about meetings. I know it's every engineer's favorite topic, but as much as we don't love meetings, there are times when they are absolutely necessary. Meetings are one of the best ways to communicate ideas clearly and fast, and they also help build trust and relationships between teammates. What I do is run them with a before, during, after framework. Before any meeting, I do my 3W prep. What's the goal? Who needs to be there? And what could be handled asynchronously? If you can't answer any of those, the meeting probably shouldn't exist. During meetings, I stick to the STAR method. Talk about the situation, the task, action, and result. For example, I'd say something like, Auth is timing out. Auth is timing out fast for users, so we need longer sessions. I suggest we resolve this by implementing refresh tokens, and that should cut login prompts by about 90%. What do you guys think? With this, I have already passed the message without going into the technical jargon. We all know what we are talking about, that's why we were hired in the first place, right? Okay, after every meeting, I follow up with a 60 seconds recap in the Teams channel. I say something like, we decided X, and the owner is XYZ, and timeline will be this sprint. Currently, there are no blockers, and the next step is to create a PR that will be ready for review tomorrow. You see? Now, let's talk about crisis situations. When everything is on fire, we need to stay calm and answer 5 questions in order. We need to talk about what's happening, who's affected, what we are doing about it, when the next update will come, and how we will prevent it. And you send them as a sequence, not one dramatic wall of text. Notice the rhythm. First update, what's wrong and what you're doing about it. The second update, what you have found. And then the third update is that it's been fixed, and here's the root cause, and here's how we're preventing this from happening again. Calm, structured, honest. And the person who sends those 3 messages in a crisis is the one everyone remembers afterward. Even if they are remote or you have never met them in person, you always remember them. Speaking of remote, being visible isn't just being online 24/7. You need to use your status and calendar to your advantage so that people can self-serve when it comes to dealing with you. A deep work status or calendar block means no one should ping me. But an open calendar means they can grab time to sync or chat with you. However, It's paramount that in your team, you agree on a rough response SLA. This is the time frame you give people to respond to you. The team leader can set this expectation, and for me, I like 1 hour max when I'm not in a meeting. I think that's a good time frame. But when I'm busy with meeting or some other work, I'd say a maximum of 3 hours, at least to acknowledge the message and give them time to expect a detailed response. Also, in remote workspaces, documentation is communication. A PR that explains itself, talks about what it does, how to test it, and maybe things you left out, takes 5 minutes to comprehend and saves the reviewer 20 more. Here's a good template you can use if your team doesn't already have one. I know this is something many engineers struggle with, including myself, and I cannot stress it enough. It's the subtle art of making your work visible, without bragging, of course. Your work isn't visible until you make it visible. Nobody is intentionally going about reading your commits. That's more for you, or for a future review of what was done. So, based on my experience so far, the approach that works best for me is to keep a weekly highlight notes. Jot down your wins and their impact, what's in progress, what you learned, and what your next week's focus is. 3 or 4 lines every Friday. I also like to write down the big calls in a short decision record, noting the context, the options, the choices I had, and the execution plan and how you will measure it. The point of all this isn't to show your knowledge of the tools used. It's to make your reasoning visible, documented, and trusted. A wise man once said, "What is written is never forgotten, and what is forgotten is never written." I totally agree with that. I also think this gives you enough to share with managers during performance reviews or one-on-ones, or even when you want to review what you have done in the past to be able to talk about it in job interviews. And I promise you, doing this will give you upper hand in life generally. Aside from this, you should also constantly share your learnings from bugs you have fixed or projects you have executed with the team. Remember to document those complex processes you have simplified, and sometimes create quick video walkthroughs of the new features to share with the team. It's not about being louder, it's about being legible and teachable. Another wise man once said, "The best way to learn is to teach." In all of this, the key is to focus on value to the team, not self-promotion. You can see some of my notes and blog posts on my personal website at jattoabdul.com. I'll leave the link in the description below. Now to the second half, the part we rarely hear as part of career advice, because it's a little awkward to talk about, but I'll just say it. Your colleagues are not your friends. This is not about being cold or insulting. It's just the honest truth. The people you work with are professional relationships first. Warm, kind, genuinely good, but professional. Real friendship usually happens off the clock. If you were friends before the job, that makes sense, and such relationships are natural. Otherwise, my advice here is simple. Be human, be kind to people, keep the conversations warm, but the relationship and conversations stay professional. And that's completely fine. Also, here's a piece of advice I'm sure a lot of engineers I have met wished they were told earlier. Don't talk about your coworkers to your other coworkers. You might think your venting feels harmless, but it really helps you, and it slowly makes you someone people are careful around. However, if you notice a real problem with someone you work with, then that's a situation where you speak to your manager or HR about it, not in chats with other coworkers. And none of this is about putting up a guard at work. It's about boundaries. Setting boundaries isn't coldness. Most of the people you work with will be acquaintances, so be genuinely good to them. Learn their name, give credit out loud where necessary, and always assume the best of people until someone gives you a real reason not to. Kindness and boundaries are not opposites. The best reputation I've seen is of people who everyone finds warm, and nobody can quote them saying anything about anyone. So be easy to work with, be hard to weaponize. That's the whole game plan. But even in the friendliest of spaces, disagreement is guaranteed on any real team because you all have different backgrounds, experience, and skill sets. The way I deal with disagreement is by following 4 steps. Acknowledge their concern, share the context, find the common ground or goal, and propose a solution. Have a discussion with the person and acknowledge their concern from their point of view. Share the context they might be missing about your opinion, then find the thing you both agree on, a common ground if any. Then propose a small experiment or hybrid solution to the problem instead of just trying to win the argument. For example, I respond to a technical disagreement about architecture by saying something like, I see where you're coming from on using microservices. In my experience at similar scale, I've hit X issue. And I know we both want maintainability, so we could run a 2-week pilot on one service, measure deployment time, document the pain points, and decide what to do with some real data. I'm open to us both trying it out, and if it doesn't work out, we can always try again with a different approach. What do you think? You'll be surprised how often the disagreement was just missing information, not a real conflict of ideas. So those are the 2 halves. Communicate the work, be proactive, precise, professional, and make it visible. Then navigate the relationship with people properly. Be warm, kind, discreet, and hard to use against. 3 things I want you to do for me this week. Collate that weekly update on Friday. Run the 3W prep before your next meeting. And on your next review, try to ask feedback. People say engineering is 50% code, 50% communication. In my experience, it's closer to 30-70. You don't have to like that ratio. I didn't. But the engineers who internalize it are the ones whose career stop feeling random. I spent the first years of my career learning this the slow way. You just got it in about 15 minutes. Don't waste the head start. Now tell me, what's that workspace communication lesson you had to learn the hard way? Let me know in the comment section. I read and learn from them. If you found this helpful, hit the like button and subscribe for more engineering career tips. And I'll see you in the next one.